Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon again, and welcome to the Hungarian Opera. My name is Joel, and I will be your guide this afternoon. During the tour, I'd like us to stay with the group. As you can see, we have quite many visitors, and the building is quite big, and it's easy to get lost in it. But those who get lost normally do not find their way back to the group and miss the tour. So please always follow this lime/green colored lollipop. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to ask. I'd like to point out that taking pictures is only allowed if you have a photo ticket, the red wristband, and they'll stay in the shop. And now standing here in the council room, but before I go into details about the council room itself, I'll just briefly go through the history and the construction of our building. The Hungarian State Opera was built between 1875 and 1884, so 131 years ago. When Hungary wasn't strictly speaking an independent country, it used to be part of the Greater Austro-Hungarian Empire, which is a double monarchy united under the rule of the Habsburg royal family, and the head of the Habsburgs at the time was Franz Joseph I. He was the Emperor of Austria and the King of Hungary at the same time. But there was a big competition between the two halves of the empire, and especially between the two capitals, Vienna and Budapest. They both wanted to show off to there all the time, especially Budapest, which was traditionally less developed than Vienna. And Vienna already had opera houses built in the 1850s, and Budapest wanted to, of course, to catch up with the Austrian competition. But not only because of that, Budapest was growing and developing quite fast at the time in terms of its economy, culture, important society too, and changing city required a normal big opera house be built for it already. Before the construction, this opera house was only a tiny theatre that sometimes presented operas, but its capacity, its design was not appropriate for the aristocratic public. This way they had to go all the way to Vienna if they wanted to enjoy the proper opera performance, and going down was an enormous military bus, right, that is most often. So the government took up the issue as well, and they persuaded Franz Joseph, the king himself, to finance the construction, which he did upon one condition, which is this opera house should be smaller than the one in Vienna. Of course, in the competition between two capitals, Franz Joseph was a tiny bit biased, favoring Vienna. And it is true that it's a smaller building, but we have many mirrors in here to make it look bigger than its actual size. Practically, the council room is the only place where there are no mirrors whatsoever in the entire building. You see quite enough of them wherever we go. The construction lasted 3 years, that was the original plan at least, but you have to bear in mind that it was a Hungarian construction, so it lasted 9 years again. Just how they go. And then the opera was opened on 27th of September in 1884, with Franz Joseph personally present with his wife, Queen Elizabeth, or Queen Sissi, as she was more commonly known. She was an iconic figure, loved by everybody, quite similar to what Diana was with the people of the UK. She was immensely popular, a lot more popular than her husband, even if that's quite similar to Diana, of course. And they came here together, but left separately. Franz Joseph stood up halfway through the first performance, walked out, and then returned to the opera house ever again. According to the legend, he felt a bit offended because when he first set foot in the opera, he felt that he was outsmarted, because when he looked around, he realized that he forgot to set another condition, according to which his opera house shouldn't be more beautiful either. Of course, if you've been to the Viennese Opera House, you will immensely see that there's a very significant difference. No, I'm kidding, of course. We don't know why he never came back here. And it wasn't really his sense of style. Most likely it was the fact that he wasn't a huge fan of operas or Hungarians for that matter. Unlike the Queen, who came back here quite often, but for her to come back here alone wasn't that easy. Now why exactly? I'm going to come to that later during the tour. And now looking around in the council room, you see the color red dominated. Red was widely used in decoration of the opera because in the late 19th century when the opera house opened, it was really just a place for the top 5% of the society, the wealthiest and most powerful ones. And red normally symbolizes power, symbolizes wealth and strength, and royalty too. That's what was widely used for decoration of the opera. because of the status of the building and the institution itself. The council room is normally not open for visitors. It is for us now because the director is on a holiday this week, so he will not be using this part of the building. It's probably my last day here in the council room too. I think he's going back tomorrow. It's normally used for meetings, as the name also suggests, normally between representatives of the opera and the representatives of the government of Hungary. This is a state-owned and state-financed opera house, so our money comes from the central budget of the country, and big money has to be approved by the government first, which is not always easy these days, but of course sometimes it works out. Last week there was a big meeting here, for example, when the government decided to give us a further 14 billion for installation to build a new storage building and a new stage for rehearsals. We were, I think, most surprised to get money in the first place, so sometimes big things happen in this council room during the opera season. Do you have any questions before we continue? Questions at any point, of course, you don't have to ask. There's no questions right now. We're continuing, so please follow me this way out. Probably not. Probably not. I think France has never been outside of Europe.
Because it's a collision of France.
Really? Maybe it was explored by Austrians or Hungarians. There's a couple of islands in Siberia too, which are named after Prince Joseph, but he certainly never was in Siberia. So it was just someone from these countries that explored and named it after. Okay. We now have arrived to the royal section, so the halls and the rooms that we're about to see were built for the members of the Habsburg family. In the late 19th century, very important to separate social classes from each other. So royalty had to be separated from those who were aristocrats, not royalty. And the biggest percent of Hungarian society, 95%, got a very small fraction of the opera that they could use, and we're not really going to see those because they're not decorated for them at all. The narrow staircases, narrow corridors leading to the only place of the building that they could use, which we're going to see when we go into the auditorium. I'd like to give some space to this group coming out here, and we're going into where they just being.
You seem to be making a career of splitting the group.
Really?
Well, one's up there and one's now.
Yeah, well, you know, we have to organize and allocate in order to get things going and rolling. We have quite many visitors, and the royal section is with 5 feet.
Was it this royal section? There was a section for commoners. And
first part of the royal section we're going to see today is the red parlor, and looking around I think you will see immediately why is it called red parlor. It is all red, so we're not too creative in naming this place. And this used to be the private parlor and reception hall of the king and the queen, in theory. Here in the center you will see the entry of the royal box that we're going to see when we also go into the auditorium in about 20 minutes. It was open only for the king and the queen, but as I said, Prince Joseph came only once, and the certain restrictions Sissy had to face was that whenever she came here alone, she was not allowed to use the royal box without her husband. In fact, nobody was allowed to use it without the head of the family, head of the state. So for 30 years it was completely empty. Nobody could set foot in there without the precious king of Hungary. And that's pretty much the case until now. Although we do not have a king, we have a president. So it's his box now. It's a presidential box. It can only be used by the president, the prime minister, and the speaker of the National Assembly, which means that just like during the reign of Prince Joseph, it's mostly empty. Now, leaders are not that very much interested in what happens to the opera. Other people can go in too, who are the members of the cleaning personnel. Of course, they get to go in there every day to clean for those who actually don't bother to be here. If you look down, you see this huge carpet that was made by hand in Békés and András. It's a tiny village in the southern side of Hungary. What makes this carpet interesting and impressive at the same time, it was made by hand. and it contains over 100,000 notes on each square meter. So to complete a carpet of this size and quality, it can take up to months, even a whole year. No wonder that we only have a few of them here in public institutions in Hungary. You'll find 2 in the Opera, you have 3 in the Parliament too, but they're much bigger in the Parliament. Here. There's one in the White House in Washington, and there's one in the Windsor Palace too, which shows that the demand for these carpets is quite high even in the international market. And looking around, you see the beautiful hand-carved wood decoration, which is Slavonian Noble Oak, a special pack over there chosen specifically for the decoration of the opera, because it's very easy to work with, it's very soft, so it can be carved out easily. And if you look around, you see the decoration is very rich in detail. It's all carved by hand by 2 artists, and Nashos and some Marcel, who also carved their own names into it, right here. Do you have any questions before we continue? And please follow me this way as we continue with the royal section. Now we arrive to the royal staircase. Of course, the royals got their own private entry into the opera, which is to the left side above the staircase, with the staircase leading in here into the royal section, so they didn't have to mix with those who were not royals. And since this is the first part of the opera that they saw when they arrived, it had to be perfect, also the perfect first impression on them too. No wonder they're looking up at the ceiling. You see this huge ornaments done by 40 artists, and the marble columns on the 2 sides were imported from Italy to make sure that they would find this quality too. And depending on the color, each part came from different parts of Italy as well. The top part here is from Siena, the white is the famous white marble of Carrara, and the black is from Florence. And even though they got the officially was good part of the opera as a private entry, there was a tiny problem that the royals had to encounter whenever they arrived. According to these Attica rules and social conventions that they had to follow, when they made a big appearance, the royals were not allowed to turn back and look up. All they could do was look straight ahead. And it's at this point I think we need to clarify, you do not have to look for things like logic behind the Attica rules, because it lacked logic almost completely. There's a social convention that had to be followed if a person didn't want to be labeled rude or unfit for their social status. So in the coming one says, the royals would not have seen anything of the hall that was built only for them, and it had been to that mirror and was placed there exactly to enable them to see the hall without having to turn around, and thus offend these precious Attica rules that apply to them too. And according to a legend, whenever the queen arrived, she would always stop around here to look at herself in the mirror for like an hour, because she thought that this was a magic mirror, and the longer you look at yourself in it, the thinner you will get to the end. Of course, we had an experiment with my colleagues a couple of times, but it never worked, so we had to conclude that this mirror isn't any other mirror in the opera, and unfortunately the queen didn't believe it either. On the 2 sides of the mirror, you can see 2 busts. One is of Ferenc Erkel, who's the first artistic director of the opera. It's quite important for development of Hungarian music, but not as well as outside of the country. Unlike the other gentleman, who is very well known around the world, he's Ferenc Liszt. Franz Liszt, probably he is the most well known here. Now we're going to go towards the other side, so please follow me by the walls. And here we see this exhibition that features the most influential performances of the past 130 years. You will see photographs taken through the 19th and 20th centuries of performances, rehearsals, costumes, with the singers, toys and sets. And you will see famous musicians portrayed as well, like Eva Bartok, who was all that for that. or we had special programs here for children. So sometimes the children get to come up to the world stage as well. To go to this or this also next destination. Before we continue though, there's a gentleman I'd like to point out. It's Mr. Mahler, the second artistic director of the Opera Budapest. Mahler now is well all around the world in the celebrated musician, but not many people really started his career here in Budapest at the age of 28 when he became the director of this opera house, which is a very brave choice from the leaders of the opera, because his reputation was everything but universal. He was quite a controversial figure, but he took the job, which he held for 3 years. After that he went to Hamburg, and then he returned to his hometown Vienna, became director of that opera house, and that's when he established his worldwide fame. He's quite well remembered in Budapest though, because he had a big impact on the city too. Each year, the entire week is dedicated for his memory, for various musical events, mostly here in the opera and Palace of Arts. And a side note to Mahler, an interesting one, is that yesterday I had a group of Hungarian school kids. They were like 7 or 8 years old, and they told me that Mahler actually looks like Harry Potter because of the glasses. But I think Harry Potter is more hair. Let's continue now. Please follow me this way. But the slide was quite through the stuff and appreciate that as they should have.
That won't make anybody get lost.
No, he wasn't loved. He was respected, but not loved. Alright, now we have right to what used to be the private